All right, we are ready to go now. I'm going to call the May 26, 2026 City Commission work session to order. So will the clerk give the invocation, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Cubit.
Here.
Coakley.
Here.
Doyle.
Here.
Tenney.
Here.
Zanotti.
Here.
DeWitt. Rumberg. Charlebois.
Rumberg's running 30 minutes.
We'll do it after we do the roll call.
All right.
Charlebois.
I'm here.
Morris.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Present. Okay, so we have Commissioner DeWitt, we knew wasn't going to be here, and then as the 8th Ward Commissioner was saying, Commissioner Runberg is on his way. So, well, at the present time, we'll excuse both commissioners, or what's your pleasure, I should say, on that. So is there a motion? Commissioner Cubit?
I make a motion to excuse Commissioners DeWitt and Commissioner Runberg.
All right, is there a second? Commissioner Coakley?
Second.
All right, any objection to excuse those two? All right, seeing none, we have a quorum. So the first order of business calls for presentations, and that's the only order of business tonight. We have our consultant here with us, James Veltrano, and he's going to have some comments before we get going with the interviews this evening. So I'm going to turn that over right with the sunlight in your eye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission. You have before you tonight 4 candidates to interview for your city manager position. This culminates a full day for these candidates. They started the day with a roundtable with your department heads. We will be collecting feedback from your department heads and sharing it with commission members over the next couple of days. They also had a tour of city facilities. It was more like a drive-by and look-at tour instead of a walk-through tour. Then they had the public meet and greet. I will remind members of the public that are here this evening, out front there is a QR code, a very small piece of paper, well, a relatively small piece of paper. If they have any comments that they would like to share with the members of the commission about the candidates, they are welcome to use that QR code or the URL address that's on there to submit comment. Those comments will come to me. They are anonymous, but I will put them in a report for the commission to consider. This evening we will have 4 interviews. The Commission has scheduled a meeting for June 8th to consider the candidates themselves. So tonight is just the interview process. After that 4th candidate, I will turn the meeting back to the mayor, and the meeting will end, and candidate discussion will happen on June 8th. For the members of Commission, you now have in front of you the questions for this evening. There are 11 scheduled questions. If it pleases the Commission, if I may ask, the way I would suggest we run the questions is the first question is set up for me to ask. It's more of an introduction question of the candidates, and then it would be my preference, if you're okay with it, to have a commissioner ask a question and kind of come around the table. So that would mean the first commissioner here, Laura, if you don't mind taking question 2, and you'll see a couple of the questions have suggested follow-ups. That would be kind of at the discretion of the full commission. If you have a follow-up question for the candidate that you think is pressing, I would certainly encourage you to ask to be recognized by the mayor. He can use his discretion to call on you. You can ask the question. I do suggest that we don't have a lot of extra time with each of the candidates, but certainly if there's a pressing thing that you wish to follow up on, please do so. So if we start with question 2, and then question 3, question 4, Benjamin, question 5, Mayor, question 6, and then Mark, if you take 6 and maybe 7, and when we get the other commissioner that arrives, they can take question 7, if that's acceptable. Question 8, Joseph, or if you're comfortable with that. And then question 9 here, and then we're going to come back around and you guys get the luxury of asking 2 questions. question 10, and question 11 to Craig, if that's acceptable to members of the commission. I will come up after that point. It is impossible to avoid that sun.
We're going to move the podium before the speakers. We can move it out. Oh, they're going to be at the table? Okay, great.
They're good. I just won't be able to see. At the end of the last question, I will approach the podium again and close the first interview, walk the candidate out, and bring the next candidate. During the interview process itself, you will only hear from me in two ways. One, if you ask a question in a follow-up manner that may be not appropriate for human resources reasons, I'll approach the podium and suggest that we rephrase the question. Or two, if we're running close to time, we may have to abbreviate some of the questions being asked so all candidates have an equitable amount of time with the commission. With those instructions, any questions for me?
Commissioner Cubit?
I guess I was just asking about the public availability. So is the live stream, it's not live, so I want to clarify for everyone when it will be available, and also if we can have clarity on the QR code, like what's the window that not only people here tonight, but also people watching remotely can give feedback through that QR code, when that will close?
Sure. With regard to when the meeting will be posted, I'll defer to the city manager momentarily for that answer. And that I really appreciate the question because I want to announce to the public and to the commission that I appreciate you not posting this live, mostly because you're having interviews that the same question will be asked of all candidates. So I think it's appropriate to post a recording as opposed to live for that reason. For the QR codes, when you hit the QR code, you'll see the deadline, but it's tomorrow late in the day that we're asking for feedback to be received. So the intent was for individuals that attend the public session as well as attend this meeting. The QR code won't be available beyond this room, though certainly if people have feedback outside of that forum for collecting information, I'm sure the city can receive that another way.
So maybe that's a separate conversation, but if there's not another meaningful mechanism from people watching from home that might have a disability or some other childcare reason or some other reason why they can't spend 5 hours with us this evening, I want them to have meaningful opportunity for input. So you said late tomorrow, so I'd like to have a clear time that that's up and available, and I would actually hope that that could be more widely shared for those that are watching from home. I don't see what the possible negative impact might be.
No negative impact, it's just how to share it, and we could figure that out either through the website or likely through the website, the city website. So I'll work with the city manager on that question tomorrow.
And also, your first question about when it's going to be posted, it'll be within 5 minutes of the meeting ending tonight, it will be posted. You're welcome.
All right, any other questions before we get going? All right, thank you.
I will get your first candidate. Thank you, Brian, for joining us this evening and for spending your day in beautiful Bay City. We will have some formal questions for you. I will be asking the first question, and then we will start to your left and go around the elected officials. We'll ask questions of you. So if you're ready, this first question gives you a chance to introduce yourself to the community. You had an opportunity in the public public meet and greet a couple minutes ago to meet many of the community. But we've asked you to prepare a 3 to 5 minute presentation to introduce yourself and the reasons why you believe you will be successful as Bay City's next city manager. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioner. Let's try again. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. It's a pleasure being here tonight. I am honored to be part of this process. Bay City is a great community. It's one of the short ones on our list where my family and I would want to relocate to, so it's great to be here. I'm honored to be here in front of you tonight. So, a little bit about me. Been in local government since 2007. I started working for the city of Negaunee as an intern management assistant when I was doing my undergraduate and then my graduate work at Northern Michigan University. Upon graduating with my MPA, I went to the city of Oshkosh. I was enrolled in their management assistant program, which was actually a development program for aspiring city managers. After a year, I actually got the opportunity to stay with Oshkosh. The management assistant program was supposed to be done after 365 days. They bring the next kid in, and so on and so forth. But they created the organization development specialist position, and I applied for it, and I received it as their first ODS. I was responsible for organizational training, strategic planning with the city commission, continuous improvement, human resources related functions, a whole bunch of different stuff. After Oshkosh, I received my first city manager chair in Vassar. I was there for about 4 years. During that time, we focused heavy on placemaking, kind of turning Vassar around, trying to make it a cool place. The commission at the time had some goals, but one of the things they really wanted to do was to bring back some life in Vassar, and I think we did that. We had some public engagement that spurred some new ideas about the riverfront, about some street concerts, some different things. It was just a great time. From Vassar, went to Sault Ste. Marie as a city manager. I was there for 6 years. During that time, we focused heavy on infrastructure grants, trying to turn the needle with some of the assets that we had throughout the community. One of the bigger ones that we accomplished was our $34 million Carbide Dock project that had a budget gap at one point of like $48 million. We were able to pursue and seek out grants through the state and federal government to fund that project. After 6 years, the commission and I decided to part ways. It happens for a city manager. Last few months, I've been just kind of taking a sabbatical, spending time with my family, doing some online training through the ICMA or the MME. I believe I got my ISO certificates as well. And now I'm down here interviewing with you fine people. So one of the reasons why I think I'll be successful in Bay City is I have a deep background in local government, from operations to staffing, strategic planning, all those things. I also have a passion of coming within an organization and trying to create some high-performing teams, whether it be the department head level, the staff level, trying to give them the direction and the tools and resources so that they can be successful. One of my mantras that I have as a city manager is that the success isn't mine, it's truly the staff's and the department heads. So I try to encourage and nurture that teamwork the best I can. As a city manager, I don't just sit around, manage the day-to-day operations. I'm very focused on creating strategic relationships throughout the community, trying to find those overlapping areas where we have shared goals to where we can move the community forward. So, again, I got 20 years experience, 10 years as city manager, last 10 years in Michigan, there isn't a problem or a challenge I haven't worked on between my organizations. I've got a deep network that'll help me out whenever I need it. So I look forward to bringing all that to you on day one and hitting the ground running.
Thank you.
Yep, we're going to go ahead and round robin now with questions.
How do you ensure that the needs and concerns of the community are incorporated into the city decision-making process?
A lot of that is depending on the process that we're talking about, but a lot of that is having the information out to be as transparent as possible. It's utilizing social media for media announcements, agendas, putting the information on the website, leaning on the local news media to be able to put the information out there, get the stories out. I think it's more than just a press release here and there or social media posts. It's getting out and being active and trying to inform the public, like I said, through community events, work in the media, trying to get that information out there. But at the same time, it's on us to present the information in a manner that your average citizen can understand. There's a lot of jargon, a lot of acronyms, a lot of hard concepts that we work on every day, and it's making sure that we're presenting that information in a way that's digestible. I don't want to make fun of my wife too much, but I kind of run some things past her, and if she can understand it, then we're generally pretty good because she doesn't like local government stuff. So, it's getting the information out there, but making sure it's digestible for the public too.
Thank you for spending the day with us. Stakeholders consistently emphasize the importance of strategic thinking and collaboration. Describe your leadership style and provide an example of how you balance those two qualities while leading an organization through a challenging or significant initiative.
So I think it comes down to doing the strategic planning first and having the foresight on what's impacting the community, what's coming down the pipeline, what challenges are out there. Once you have that kind of documented, we work with the commission to identify what those priorities are. What are the challenges that you want us to undertake? We can do a lot of things, but we can't do it all. So what are the priorities? What do you want us to focus our time on? Once we have those priorities identified, then it's taking it out to the stakeholders to see where the goal alignment is between those two organizations. Otherwise, without those identified priorities, you're just kind of hoping and talking and eventually may find something. But if you have an actual priority, and maybe it's something the city can do, maybe it's something the city can't do, maybe there's somebody else that has that ability to kind of hammer home that goal for us or with us. So it's really identifying those strategic priorities as a group and then bringing it to our community as stakeholders.
Thank you.
What do you consider essential in the relationship between a city manager and the city commission, and how would you facilitate a productive relationship with the commission?
I'm sorry, one more time.
What do you consider essential in the relationship between a city manager, the city commission, and how would you facilitate a productive relationship with the commission?
I think it comes down to communication in both ways. It's not just the city manager constantly communicating with the commission, but it's the commission communicating with the city manager. And again, having those shared priorities kind of outlined in the beginning too, but it's really the communication. If there's something that's, boy, I'm really nervous. I'm sorry, you guys. Will you just give me that question one more time? Cliff Notes version of it.
Not a problem. What do you consider essential in the relationship?
Yes, communication. Communication is key to any relationship. If we have something going on, I want the commission to be made aware of it. Vice versa. If the commission has something going on, I want us to be made aware of it so we can solve that problem or address that challenge. It's a two-way street. I've had commissioners that have been really good at communicating with me. I've had some that have been less kind of effective in communicating with me, but I always make it a priority to communicate with the commission. My mantra is no surprises for the commission, the best I can. Sometimes the commission knows something that I already don't know because of social media or Facebook, whatever the case may be, but I want you all to be as informed as possible not only so you can interact with the public and not be blindsided with those questions, but when it comes time to make those decisions and an agenda item in a meeting, I want you to be as informed as possible. So really the key is communication. And like I said, both ways, up and down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for rereading the question.
All right, imagine you arrive in Bay City and quickly hear different priorities from residents, staff, and elected officials. Resources are not available to address all priorities. What process would you use to determine what should receive immediate attention versus long-term focus?
So I guess there's a short-term response and probably a long-term response to that, right? So landed Bay City, day one, priorities and challenges, things are starting to come in. It's more of what the criticality is. Where's the fire at? Not the actual fire, but where's the fire at? What needs to be addressed right now and how do we move forward with that? But, you know, from my standpoint and what I like to do with my commissions I work for is I'm going to say it again, I'll probably say it a million more times moving forward, is really some kind of shared strategic planning activity to where you all have an opportunity, you get to get everything off your chest. Here's my priorities. Well, here's my priorities. What do we want to focus on? That allows me to go back to the organization and align the staff behind those goals, but it also gives us clarity. So when these other priorities come up, I'm sorry, that's great, but we're really focused on this right now because we do, you're right, we have limited resources, we have limited time, we have limited staff. We need to find those items that are going to make that big impact, that big splash, and try to keep some of the other stuff. The hard part is what I consider a priority, what a citizen considers a priority, may not be a priority for the bigger picture of things. But it's identifying those priorities, sitting down as a group with a facilitator, trying to come up with some shared priorities or some desired outcomes so that we can align staff and keep them moving forward and keep some of this other stuff at bay.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you for coming today. Appreciate you spending the day with us. So recruiting and retaining staff are priorities for the city. What strategies have you used successfully to recruit and retain talented employees?
So recruiting-wise, you know, we've modernized I'm just writing a note really quick, recruitment and retain. Recruitment-wise, we modernized the actual process. Instead of just a standard black and white job description that goes out there, hey, work here, we've put together the profiles, kind of similar to what you did for the city manager search. Here's the profile, here's the department, here's what you're getting into, here's the resources, and posing out that way. And really, we in the Sioux, I was hit early by the silver tsunami. I had a lot of retirements in my department heads right out the gate. And we had a hard time filling those positions. For one, it's tough to fill spots in local government in general. But for two, only people like me want to live in the UP. There's not a lot of people who want to come across that bridge. So that was a real big challenge. So we had to go through multiple rounds. We hired headhunters to try to get us people before, and really what we found out that was consistently working, whether it be a department head or a patrol officer, paramedic, whatever the case may be, was modernizing that process and having the information out there and really trying to market the community behind those positions as well, that, hey, you're not just going to come here and be a cop. You're going to be a cop in a great community. Look at all these assets. Look at these great things going on up here. You know, retention-wise, and this plays in the recruitment too, staying on top of your classification compensation system. That was a big thing. When we started going out to market for some of these other positions, we haven't updated the compensation since the last time they were open. So you're talking about 20 years ago. So the salary range for a city engineer 20 years ago is probably like an intern engineer salary range nowadays. So we had to modernize, we had to update that kind of information too, and that really helped us secure some good people. You know, retention's tough, but if you treat your employees fairly, if you pay your employees fairly, and you give them work worth doing, they're more than likely going to stay with the organization. So trying to find those bigger picture items, trying to tie back, hey, you are in this position. This is the impact you have on this community. You're not just doing this job. you are doing something to improve the daily lives of these individuals. You know, I've always called it the second paycheck, trying to get them that second paycheck that motivates them, inspires them, continues to push them forward on the hard days.
All right, thank you.
Just had to bring my fellow commissioners.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure. Was your mic on for that? Okay. It didn't seem it. Okay, thank you.
I think I got it. I could ask for a refresher, so don't flip the page yet. But so, in short, biggest team that I've led, difficult situations, leadership style. Correct? Yeah, okay. So, biggest team I led was Sault Ste. Marie. I had 12, sometimes 13 department heads, and that was the biggest team. Outside of any kind of smaller project team, you know, the biggest, most complex team that I led was the department heads of Sault Ste. Marie. What made it more challenging was what I was saying with the silver tsunami. We had a lot of retirements. So in the first 2 or 3 years that I was there, of the 12 or 13 department heads, I replaced 8 due to retirements. So we had to go through the recruitment process. We had to go through the hiring process. And we brought in very skilled, very qualified individuals that saw things a little bit differently. They had some different ideas. They had some new resources. They wanted to try to improve the organization. And at times, that can clash with kind of the older model of, that's not what we do, we're not going to move it that way, let's just continue to do what we always did. And, you know, with those fresh set of eyes that came up there too, they identified a lot of different issues that either wasn't being communicated up to the city manager, my predecessor and myself, or they were, you know, older regulatory things that needed to be updated. So there was this big push of fresh ideas, you know, burning issues, needed capital, and it did create some friction within the department head group. And to manage that, you know, I treated them like a team. We always sat down, we discussed these issues. If it was a recruitment or a hiring thing, it was discussing it with the HR person, with the police chief, making sure we're all on the same page, and trying to paint a course forward. While somebody may say that they're opposed to going down this path, they may actually only have concerns. So trying to have that conversation, what are those concerns you've got on your mind, so that we can try to address them. But there was a lot. I mean, we had things with financing of projects, you know, ambulances that need to be replaced, fire trucks that need to be replaced, police cars that need to be replaced. It built up over time. They weren't being addressed. So it was all on us to address that at that point. But again, it was keeping them informed, not only with what they were doing, but with what each department's doing and how it could interact with them. Having them be a part of that bigger picture when it came to budget time, having them review each other's budgets, getting that better idea of that bigger picture so that they could be a team moving forward. Eventually, it was rough. I mean, it was rough first going into it, but eventually things did smooth out. People got used to one another. They had good conversations. They were able to come together, proactively solve problems, and we were able to get some good things done.
I do have a follow-up.
Yes, sir.
So we have 8 different labor union groups here. What is your experience working with labor unions and negotiating fair contracts between those labor?
Yeah, so I started off with 7 unions in the Sioux, 2 merged, 2 fire departments merged into one, so I had 6 in the Sioux, 3 in Vassar, two in Vassar, excuse me. And then when I was in Oshkosh, I was part of that negotiations team, and we had 3 contracts at that time. But, you know, with Vassar and Sault Ste. Marie, it was more on the manager to negotiate those contracts, manage the grievance, arbitration process, all those things. So in my 6 years up there, we probably had 2 cycles, so probably 12 contracts got negotiated, successor agreements. You know, the biggest challenge one was the fire department. It was their supervisors union and the frontline staff. They merged to one. And it, in practice, or in theory, it should be just pushing the papers together and everything should line up. But this benefit was different. This benefit was different. This process was different. What about this? So before we even negotiate that contract, we had to spend like 3 weeks going through line by line, page by page, identifying the differences, agreeing to those changes, and merging them together. So I got a lot of experience negotiating contracts. Kind of the process that I use is to, when we open up or we're getting close to open up that contract, start talking with the department heads that are impacted by it. What changes do we need to make? What issues are we having? Are there past grievances that we got to go back to? As we work on that, looking at the finances, what can we afford in terms of a fair cost of living agreement? Is there something else with the classification compensation system we got to look at? What are the challenges we're having? And then sitting down with the commission in a closed session saying, here's the information. Here's what we're looking at. What is our strategy? Here's the strategy that we think we should do. What's your comfort level? Getting direction from the commission, and then going to the contract. I would say of the, like I said, dozen plus contracts I've had, I've only had one that kind of went sideways on me, and that was that new contract for the 2 fire unions because there was just so much going on at that point. But few contracts ended in mediation. I don't think we had any go to arbitration. We were able to settle out those differences. So quite a bit of background.
Okay, thank you.
In short.
Thank you for being here, and I want to apologize about being late. It's not fair to you, but I will try to get up to speed as fast as possible. Stakeholders identified visibility, accessibility, and rebuilding trust as desirable traits for the next city manager. How would you establish credibility and trust within your first 6 months in Bay City?
Yeah, those are good topics. You know, trust and credibility go kind of hand in hand, right? You can't trust somebody if they're not credible. But, you know, the first 6 months, what I would envision is coming up here, if I was a city manager, come down here as a city manager, it's getting out and about. It's trying to meet as many people, working with you all to identify the key stakeholders. Who should I be meeting with? Following up with them, getting their priorities, and just being available for the public too. You know, being accessible, having a conversation with people, like downstairs, shaking hands, having a good conversation, maybe a little bit of joking. It goes a long way with building trust. I think the biggest thing from a bigger picture standpoint, one thing that I always try to do is to build trust, you know, whether with the commission, with the staff, or with the public as a whole. I say what I'm going to do, and I do what I'm going to say. And I think that carries a lot of weight in creating trust with people. Some people may not like what I have to say or what I'm going to do, but having that information out there, being upfront with them, this is what I'm going to do, and then following through with it. I don't mean to make it sound like it's always going to be a negative thing, but just having that information out there. Here's what we're going to do, and then doing what we said we were going to do.
Thank you.
Housing availability, affordability, and neighborhood investment emerged as themes from the stakeholder survey. Please describe a project or initiative you led that addressed neighborhood revitalization or community development. What was your role, and what lessons did you take from the experience that could apply to Bay City?
All right, so housing and neighborhood development. Housing's a big issue, right? I'm not surprised that there's a question about housing. It was a big issue when I was ambassador, and it's continued to be a bigger issue throughout the state, throughout the country. So when it comes to trying to address that issue, you know, there's multiple tools that you could use and that we have used in my experience. Part of it is zoning, changing the zoning ordinances to allow certain uses by right, changing lot width, encouraging more density, encouraging the missing middle, both my communities, in Vassar and in the Sioux, we underwent a total revamp of the zoning ordinances to allow certain small, tiny houses, ADUs, PUDs, try to fill in that gap. So both places had fresh zoning ordinances that we were working with. In terms of neighborhood redevelopment, I think that's a big thing because to a certain extent, there's a housing issue that's out there. But I always ask the question, is it a quantity issue or is it a quality issue? It's probably a little bit of both. When I was in Vassar, it wasn't necessarily a quantity issue. It was a quality issue. So that's where we got a little bit stronger on some blight and code enforcement efforts to try to beautify these properties. We also supported the neighborhood with different potential grants that were coming through MISHDA to try to put up some new sidings, new windows, low-income type of improvements. Trying the stick and the carrot mentality. Up in the Sioux, the same thing. There was a bit of a quality issue, so we reinforced our code enforcement, our blight issues, or blight enforcement, but we also had a quantity issue in the Sioux. There wasn't enough. There was a lot of vacant land. Some of it was swamplands, but there was a lot of vacant land that we could utilize. We weren't having developers kind of beat down our doors. We're too far off the market. There were some concerns whether or not people would make money. And let's face it, people do these things to make money. So what we did was we started trying to play developer ourselves. So what is that process the developer walks through when he's trying to build new houses or she's trying to build new houses or apartments? They got to acquire land, they got to have designs, construction, all these different things. And so we played developer. We tried to answer those questions one step at a time. There was a piece of property that the city actually owned, and it was about 60 acres. And I was talking to my community development director at the time, and I said, "What about this property? Why isn't nobody in this?" He's like, "We're not sure if it's a wetland or it's developable. We don't really know." And I said, "Well, have we looked at that at all?" "Well, no." "Great. Here's some money. Get the wetland assessment done. Answer that question. So if a developer does come in there, we can say for certainty that it's dry." Okay, we got that. So what's next? We don't have any interest yet. Why don't we design this parcel? Why don't we show what it could look like? Get some mocks, some conceptual drawings up. Here's the roads, here's the driveway, here's the houses. Here's a good mix of houses that could make you a little bit of extra money. Trying to take those steps. We went so far as to, the Michigan Municipal League had their housing plans on paper. I can't remember the program they were saying, but essentially they were pre-designed housing. All you had to do was figure out the foundation, give it to somebody, and their building plan is good to go. We sent those to our building inspector just to have a cursory review, make sure they look good, nothing's crazy with them. And then that became part of our package too of, look, we've got this site. You could fit 4 of these in this area. Here's the building plans. It's pre-zoned, it's pre-approved. All you gotta do is pull the trigger, swing a hammer, and build them, and then sell them. So we've tried to go that far. I would like to say there was a lot more success for it, but again, it's kind of a hard area in the Sioux to try to get some developers up there. But working through that process and having those things in place, I think it made us stronger as an organization, as a community, because we were ready when those developers started knocking at our door.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bay City seeks strong financial management while maintaining focus on core services. Describe your approach to budgeting and long-term financial sustainability.
Ooh, it's a big one. So, budgeting process. Long-term finance. I apologize for having to rewrite the questions. I just get a little long-winded and I can lose sight of the questions at times. So, budgeting. Budgeting, ideally, it's a process that happens once a year, but it's something that should be reviewed throughout the year. Going into budgeting, again, I said I was going to say this before, but part of the budget process should incorporate the commission's priorities. What is it we want to move the needle on, where we want to go in the future? Because that's going to help us decide where funding is going to go. Or do we strengthen something, and what do we kind of want to take away from? Because there's not endless resources. We have to be honest about that. So there has to be some shifting at times. But again, identifying those priorities from the commission based on community input, what is it you want to do? And then that filters down into the budget. And I like the budget to be more than just a static financial document. That was one thing that always drove me nuts in the SUE, but it was something we just never had time to really do because we were still learning the BS&A finance system. But I think your budget book looks really good. It's got basic information of the departments. It's got the staffing count to it. It's got the finances. You broke down the revenues with it. But the budget can tell more of a story. It can be incorporated with those priorities. And hey, here's the past. Here's where we're at. Here's the future that we're trying to attain. The budget document to me can be a story. It can be more of a policy document than just something static. Something you have to have a ruler out there and go line by line and go through. The actual budget process, like I said, starts with kind of having some priorities identified from the commission, taking those down to the staff. When the budget season is here, making sure that their requests are lining up or can justify some of those priorities. And not everything is going to tie directly to a priority, and that's okay. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be cut, but making sure that that's all tied in there. And then part of that process, too, what I've always liked to do is meet with the department heads one-on-one or one-on with the finance team, however you want to say it, going through them line by line, learning and understanding what they're trying to accomplish, what they're shooting for, what their challenges are, what their opportunities are, presenting it out to the organization and the staff, because the staff want to know too. And I can't speak necessarily on the Bay City, but in my experience, staffs haven't always had that opportunity, especially when there's a potential crisis that's coming down, like budget cuts or a budget deficit. Having that information out there so that they understand it. And here's what we're doing. Here's how we're trying to work on this. But then also incorporating some of that into the community too. Community should understand the budget, what's going on, when's the hearing, have a good presentation with it so that people can watch it, follow along and understand what's going on. Long-term financing. Long-term financing really starts with having a long-term forecast. We have our audit that shows us where we've been. We have our budget that shows us where we are, where we're going for the next year. But what does everything look out 5 years, 10 years down the road? What's the revenues expected to be? Are they going to decline or are they going to increase? What's the expenditures going to look like? Having a good, solid, long-range finance forecast. It takes a lot of time, but it can be a real powerful tool for us. And that will help dictate some of those long-term financing policies, or even some of those questions. Do we want to have an SRF bond for our water system, or do we want to have a GO bond that pulls against the general fund? I don't know. Can we afford it? Well, I don't know. I better do the long-range forecast so I can look at it and actually be able to figure out what it's going to do our budget, and that kind of answers that question. So I've had experience. One of my first jobs in Oshkosh was creating, in my biased opinion, this beautiful long-term finance or forecast system that was a million spreadsheets, but now they've got software that you click 2 buttons and they do it for you. So I don't want to say it was time wasted, but it's a good lesson learned. But having those systems available to the commission, to the staff, to the public, and kind of having that plan out there.
Based on what you have learned about Bay City, what do you believe are the 3 most important priorities for the next city manager, And why are you the right person to lead those efforts?
That's a good question. So my top three is based on my research of the community, reading the newspaper, going through the commission meetings. A lot of it was, the input I received today. Community event was by far better than what I anticipated. I thought maybe there'd be a lesser crowd here, but it was really pretty well attended. Infrastructure is obviously a big thing, right? And that's a big item. It could be the roads, it could be your sewer, it could be your water lines, your electrical system. Roads is probably at the top of that, but just infrastructure in general. How do you afford, or how are you going to move forward on replacing and maintaining the infrastructure moving forward? I heard a lot about housing. Housing seems to be kind of a topic of concern. Number 3 would be the bridges. I got a lot of feedback from the bridges. I'll be upfront, I don't know what the status of those things are, what can happen, what can't happen. I just know from the conversations today, the bridges are still kind of a burning item out in the community. Why am I the person that can handle these things? A couple of different reasons. My background, I am incredibly strong and proficient in infrastructure. We've gotten a lot of big projects done. We've gotten a lot of grants done. We've done a lot of amazing things. On the other token of that, I do consider myself a city manager that is accessible, transparent, getting information out there to the community, meeting one-on-one with people and having those kind of discussions to keep them forward. Especially with the bridge. Whatever option is out there, there has to be a process in there that gets the information out to the public and provides an opportunity to bring them in. And I don't mean just a commission meeting during public comments. There's got to be a concerted effort about getting that information out and receiving some feedback. It allows the public the opportunity to chime in on an important issue that affects them day to day. And it also provides the commission with a little bit more information to make their decision. One of my primary goals as a city manager, not to go off on a tangent, but one of my primary goals as a city manager is to make sure you have all the information so that you can make the decision and stand by it. I'll make a recommendation, take it or leave it. You're not going to upset me, but I want you to be as informed as possible as a commissioner. At times that's consultant reports, at times that's public input. And what does the public think about these particular topics? So those are kind of my pillars of a city management. Those are things that I've tried to strive for in both the communities that I've worked for, and those are things that I would bring to Bay City as well.
I have a follow-up on that. Has there been a time where you had an experience where you mentioned making sure the commissioners have the right information, and you're going to give a recommendation, and it can be, take it or leave it. But do you have an experience where you thought that maybe a city manager or the commission was going in a wrong direction, and how did you handle that, and how did it go?
So if I understand and make a recommendation, and I felt the commission is going to go in the wrong direction?
Yeah, I mean, or maybe they didn't ask for your recommendation and they just started doing a thing and you thought that that was wrong. So as a city manager, you mentioned that you see it part of your role is to give information to the commission, make recommendations at times.
Yep.
But have you had to push back, I guess, against the commissioners? Have you done that, and how did it go?
So it's a good question. My role as a city manager is not to fight you all. And I'm not saying that's what you're suggesting, but my role is not to fight you. Your role is to set the policy and the direction. If I make a recommendation and you take it, awesome. If you don't, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. If you're going down a direction that maybe I don't think we should go, it is what it is. That's my role, is to follow through on the commission directives. Now, if you're doing something that is maybe could use more information, I will chime in and say, hey, Commissioner, I think maybe there's some more information. Give staff and I a chance to gather it. Give us a couple of weeks. We'll bring that information to you. If we can, we'll email it to the commission as a whole so you have that ahead of time. Maybe pump the brakes. But at the end of the day, if the commission wants to move forward with whatever or whatever action that they want to take, that's their prerogative. So long as it's not illegal. I mean, if somebody's like, hey, I think we need to do, I don't know, we need to take all of the general fund tax dollars and give it to so-and-so for something crazy. I can't even make an example. But something like that, yeah, you guys can't do that. And I've always been pretty blunt with my commission. When things like that have came up, there hasn't been a whole lot. Usually in strategic planning, that's where some of those ideas come up. Well, what about if we do this? Well, I don't think we can, but maybe give us an opportunity to do some legal research on it. We can present you some options that may get you to that similar outcome, but maybe as presented is against the law, whatever the case may be. But, city manager, I am not here to direct you. You are here to direct me. And so long as you're not going down a line that's illegal, then the commission prerogative is the way we go. I'm here to present you with information, options, and lead your organization and be a part of your community. You are the ones that are responsible for choosing the action in which way we go down. I don't mean down like a sinking ship. We move forward. That's what I meant. That was a bad choice of words. Sorry.
All right, Brian. We've got a few minutes left, but if you could please provide a brief 30-second to 1 minute closing for the commission members and members of the community as we end this formal interview. Floor is yours.
I appreciate this opportunity. Like I said, I'll be honest, it was a rough start. Butterflies, nerves are kind of kicking inside me here, so I stuttered a little bit, and I apologize, but I appreciate you sticking with me on some of these questions. What I just want to reiterate really is, city management is my thing. It's my life. It's what I love. I fell in love with it when I was an intern in Negaunee. It has been a continuing dream of mine to be a city manager, being in small communities, mid-cities, maybe bigger cities some days, but this is what I love to do. I love helping you people figure out the path and how to get where you want to go. That is what drives me, and bringing the organization along with us to get those things done. I love city management. I am fortunate enough that I get to do it in places that I also like to be in. I've been not with the Sioux for a few months, but I have not applied to other jobs because those aren't communities I want to be in. Bay City has my resume, and I'm before you guys tonight because I want to be in Bay City. So I appreciate the time. I appreciate the interview. The day was great. You've got great department heads. The community thing was super awesome. I loved it. I look forward to hopefully hearing you guys back in a couple weeks here, but it's been great. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. For members of the commission, you have about a 3 to 4 minute break as I bring out your next candidate.
All right, well, thank you. And I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the commission. We have here your second candidate for this evening. He will be introducing himself momentarily. As we did with the first candidate, I will ask the first question, and then the commissioners will ask individual questions, starting to the candidate's left. And we will go around, and we will have approximately the same amount of time as the first candidate had. But I have the first question, Al. And this is your opportunity to introduce yourself to the commission and the community more formally. Appreciate you participating in all the activities earlier today to get to know the community a little bit more. We've asked you to prepare a 3 to 5 minute presentation that introduces yourself and the reasons you believe you will be successful as Bay City's next city manager. The floor is yours, Al.
Thank you, James. And thank you, Mayor, City Commission, for this opportunity to sit in front of you in this chair. I'm excited for a few different reasons being in this chair. One, it's the last event for today, and today has been grueling, if I'm being honest. So that's exciting to make it to this point. I also want to thank you, having been a member of a school board for 7 years. I know that the decision that's in your hands right now is a heavy one. It probably weighs on your mind quite a bit. And it's a giant responsibility to make sure that you get the right person for the role. I come to you with an analytical public administration background. I've spent nearly 2 decades working in higher ed, which I'm sure that's an untraditional candidate for this role. But I'm excited because I've spent a career streamlining sluggish bureaucracy with really mild tweaks and an emphasis on culture. You'll see in my resume and in my cover letter some of the accomplishments that I've had while at Mott. And I'm excited to talk a little bit more about those today, and also tell you about some of the reasons that I've decided to apply for this position. I know that in addition, the Commission is highly focused on execution and infrastructure of your 2026 budget priorities. And I want you to know that as an administrator, I'm very comfortable in working with capital outlay projects, multi-million-dollar budgets, and the complex bureaucracy that takes place in municipal government. I think that's why I've applied professionally. I'm excited. I have a voracious curiosity, so I'm excited to take on new challenges. But this is also personal for me. I have a deep affinity for Bay City. I have a place in Linwood, travel through Bay City frequently, and have always enjoyed it. So much so that my wife and I have always talked about retiring to Bay City. To me, this is an opportunity to help shape this city that we were thinking about moving to 20 years from now, but instead spending 20 years making sure that it maintains the same allure that intrigues me about Bay City. And I think as a side note, for me, I'm really not applying for a job. I have a job at Mott Community College. I love that job. But this is more about me applying to the city. If I were to be offered this job opportunity, I would want to move here 20 years earlier than expected. Move my family here, and I can tell you that my better half is an asset that the Bay City Commission and residents would love to have. I hope this is being recorded because I wanted to make sure that I got that out there. And with that, I look forward to having a conversation with you guys today about the things that I've done, the opportunity to bring a modern, responsive, data-driven management style of executive leadership to Bay City, and I'm eager to take your questions.
Thank you. How do you ensure that the needs and concerns of community stakeholders are incorporated into city decision-making, in the city decision-making process?
Yeah, I think in large part that has to do, it's a multifaceted answer, right? I think with most answers, they're going to be multifaceted because of public sector work. I think, getting to know the commissioners really well, making sure I understand what the issues are in their wards and making sure that I tap into the contacts that they have. Also making sure that I'm working with the department heads to understand what their needs are, and then being visible in the community. It's one of the reasons why I mentioned in the beginning the plan would be to move here. I think to properly lead, you have to be invested completely, visible, and having conversations consistently with the residents of the city that you serve.
I have a follow-up to that. Could you describe a situation that you handled where the community faced a contentious issue with strong diverging opinions, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, when I was on the Durand School Board, we were in a situation where, due to financial reasons, we were facing having to close 2 elementary schools. As you can imagine, there's a deep tie to elementary schools in the community. I think the most important thing is to be very open, honest, transparent about what's led to the place that we're at and the different solutions that are on the table and why the decisions are being made that have to be made. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary in some circumstances.
Thank you for being here today. Stakeholders consistently emphasize the importance of strategic thinking and collaboration. Describe your leadership style and provide an example of how you balance those two qualities while leading an organization through a challenge or significant initiative.
So my leadership style, and I mentioned this to the department heads in phase 2 of today's interviews, is incredibly collaborative. It's important for me to make sure that we're getting the entire team together to figure out what the best direction forward is. I also believe in providing department heads in this case a significant amount of autonomy. I think that's how you retain and attract great employees. And honestly, that's the way I prefer. I think you have to manage the way you prefer to be managed, right? For me, it's important to have a significant degree of autonomy when making decisions. Did I miss the second part of your question? I feel like I might have got it.
An example of how you did so.
So I think a great example is recently, obviously, none of my examples are going to tie directly to municipal government, but recently we changed the entire onboarding process for the institution. Many of the employees that were involved in that have been at the college for decades, and getting them on board and making sure that their voices were heard, making sure that they understood that I was listening and comprehending the direction that we had to go, that they would like us to go, and then articulating the direction that we felt like we needed to go. And we took, our onboarding process from 14 business days down to 5 hours. So I think it's a great example of trying to cut through some of the sluggish bureaucratic red tape.
Thank you for being here with us. What do you consider essential in the relationship between a city manager and the city commission, and how would you facilitate a productive relationship with the commission?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it boils down to trust. authentic interactions, consistent communication, transparency, ensuring that, you know, when I know something that I feel like the entire commission needs to know, that that's communicated efficiently, quickly, and equally to the entirety of the commission. Yeah, it boils down to trust. We have to, I'm sure a question coming up is, you know, what would the beginning days of, if I were to get this role, what would it look like? And a large percentage of that is going to be meeting with you guys, getting to know you, you know, on a one-on-one basis.
Thank you.
All right, imagine you arrive in Bay City and quickly hear different priorities from residents, staff, and elected officials. Resources are not available to address all priorities. What process would you use to determine what should receive immediate attention versus long-term focus?
Thank you, Commissioner Tenney. And to be honest with you, I don't have to imagine. I think I heard quite a bit of that downstairs when I had an opportunity to meet the public. And I think that's what you're describing as part of working in the public sector, period, right? You're going to have $20 million worth of problems and only $3 million to allocate toward solutions. I think one is making sure that I understand the direction of the commission and what's important for them and their wards and what needs to be accomplished, but then also working with the department heads to figure out what is feasible and what is doable. I think obviously safety and urgent problems are at the top of that list, and you know, the process of getting there is commission, the department heads, and working with the community stakeholders. One of the things that I look forward to early on is getting to know the community district councils. I think that's a great mechanism to find out what the needs are and how to prioritize them.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for being here. So recruiting and retaining staff are priorities for the city. What strategies have you used to successfully recruit and retain talented employees?
This was a question during the meeting with the department heads as well. And I think it's a great question because having talented employees, I think, is one of the main ways to make sure that the city operates effectively. To me, it boils down to management style. That's one of the most important. I think great employees want the autonomy that I discussed before. When you hire somebody great, they want to make sure that they have the ability to make changes, implement things that are in their purview. I think the second is great employees want to make sure that you're holding other employees accountable. So if you are an exceptional employee, you want to make sure that, you know, people that are a drag on the system are being held accountable. I think a third is making sure that compensation rates are fair and that they're competitive. That's incredibly important. And then fourth, I think, is culture. I think based on my observations of the city and being able to meet with employees, the culture seems to be rather strong here in Bay City. You have many employees with, you know, decades upon decades of service. And my hope is to be able to ingratiate myself in that culture and perhaps improve upon it.
All right, thank you.
Bay City has nearly 300 employees across 8 unions. Tell us about the largest and most complex team you have led. Describe a significant challenge or opportunity you navigated with that team. your leadership role, and the results you.
So, thank you for the question. I think, so the largest team I've led, I'm currently leading a team of direct reports, around 14, with a multitude of departments, with about 130 to 140 employees. Higher ed, much like municipal government, is highly unionized. We have close to 6 bargaining units at Mott. So that's definitely something that I've had experience with. I think as a particular example, I think, going back to the onboarding process, that was an incredible challenge and an opportunity all at the same time. It gave us an opportunity to make things easier for students, and the challenging part was trying to get everybody on board, right? I think when you're leading large teams, making sure everybody understands the vision, where we're going, why we're going there, is an ongoing process that is incredibly difficult. I think repetition is important, ensuring that they understand why we've made the decisions that we're making, but then also giving them an opportunity to influence the direction that we're going. So,
I just follow up real quick. Did you have any participation in the bargaining process while working through negotiations at all in your roles?
So not necessarily, well, yes, I've not only at the school board that I served on, just negotiations in general, I have had experience with that. With the particular example that I was talking about, we did have to have conversations with multiple unions about positions that were changing. And again, it's about being transparent, open, honest about why we're making the decisions that we're making.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. My question is, stakeholders have identified visibility, accessibility, and rebuilding trust as desirable traits for the next city manager. How would you establish credibility and trust within your first 6 months in Bay City?
I think a large portion of that is holding true to the promises that you make, right? So one of the promises that I'm making is moving to the community. That needs to happen within that first 6 months. And I think once that happens, it makes building those relationships and that trust a heck of a lot easier. Running into people in the grocery store, you guys experience it all the time, right? Like, you're visible, you're in the community, you're living here, you're whether it's, for me, it'll be my daughter's soccer games or, my son's t-ball games. You have no choice but to be visible and understand that. And then when you have a conversation with somebody and you tell them you're going to do something, or you're going to look into something and get back to them, you have to follow through on that. That in and of itself, to me, is the most practical and real way to build that trust. I think in addition to that, meeting with those groups that I had talked about, all those different stakeholders, you as the commission members, the people that you see as influencers in your wards, meeting with the community district councils, all of those things, I think, are steps to build that trust.
Thank you.
Can I move this monitor? I can't see the
That's
camera.
what I was thinking.
Just move it back. Well,
Yeah, we have our IT department here, he can help.
Thank you.
that'll work too.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Housing availability, affordability, and neighborhood investment emerged as themes from the stakeholder survey. Please describe a project or initiative you led that addressed neighborhood revitalization or community development. What was your role, and what lessons did you take from the experience that could apply to Bay City?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning, I think authenticity is important. And I don't have a practical example, having worked in higher ed, of what you just described. But I do think that it's important that every community has housing available to meet everyone in every phase of life. And finding ways to work with the commission, the department heads, and the community to develop solutions to ensure that there is affordable housing for all stakeholders is critical. So during the conversations with the community, it's abundantly clear to me that that is one of those problems that I think in the first year we would have to work together to come up with a plan to show that we are addressing it.
Thank you.
Bay City seeks strong financial management while maintaining focus on core services. Describe your approach to budgeting and long-term financial sustainability.
Thank you. My approach to budgeting is, well, first let me start by saying it appears as though, from an outsider's view, that the city has done a very good job at managing the finances. Like I mentioned previously, in all public sectors, you're going to have many more millions of dollars of problems than you have money to throw at those problems. So for me, when it comes to budgeting, it's really what you value. So it's getting with the commissioners who have gotten with their wards to figure out what those most important priorities are for them, and then finding ways to allocate resources to those issues. So it's a very collaborative process, and I think it demonstrates what the values are of, in this case, Bay City. I think part of managing the budget is also finding creative ways to augment the budget. So finding ways to go out and get state and federal funding, going out and getting grants, leveraging all the tools that are at our fingertips to ensure that we're maximizing the dollars that we're getting from the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Based on what you've learned about Bay City so far, what do you believe are the three most important priorities for the next city manager as you know it this time? And why do you think you're the right person to lead those efforts?
So I think housing, as it's come up here and it's come up downstairs while we're down there, is certainly one of those priorities. I think secondly is finding a way to grow. And by grow, I mean continue to bring in strong job opportunities for the residents. And I think third, and maybe most importantly in this situation, is you have an outgoing city manager that's been here for 8 years, 26 years during her career. There's a lot of stability, I think, with that, right? There's a lot of stability inside the organization as far as I can tell. I think it's important for this next person to come in, move slow, but efficiently, and ensure that all of the things that are going well aren't overturned or let off track. So it's important, I think, whenever you have a transition in an executive leadership role, to make sure that you're working with all stakeholders to have a steady hand and keep things operating the way they need to operate.
I do have a follow-up. You had mentioned getting with the commissioners and understanding priorities of the wards. Could you explain a situation where you pushed back on an elected official, a board member, somebody else in a position of authority because you believed that they were going in a wrong policy direction or going down a path that you didn't think was advisable? So what did you do in your role to push back and to serve the organization as a whole, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, that's a great question, and if I'm being fully transparent, that will probably happen frequently. I think it's important for us to have open and honest dialogue. I have had instances sitting in your seat and sitting in a seat like this. The most important part is making sure that everybody understands all the information, right? Transparency and articulating it in a way that's consumable. I know that when I've had elected positions similar to the ones that you all have, you're not content experts on the goings-on of the organization, and you need it. It's important to explain it in a multitude of ways and make sure that you understand as an elected official what's feasible and what's not. I think it's also important as elected officials to understand what the sentiments of the department heads are and the employees of the city. So making sure those things are shared open and honestly and frankly, I think is the only way to get through issues like that, which will happen.
Commissioner Coakley?
Just to follow up on that, why do you feel you're the right person for this job with this effort? Second part of the first question she asked.
Honestly, I think in large part because the intention is to become a resident here, bring my executive leadership skills, the culture that I've built in the other positions that I've had, and ensure that the city continues to move forward. I obviously am not going to come in with a whole bunch of proven initiatives that I've done somewhere else, or some panacea that I can promise is going to solve all the infrastructure problems that Bay City has. But what I can tell you is that I will be fully committed to the position, that I will be here in it wholly to make this city over the course of the next, hopefully, 20 years better than what I found it at.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Baltrina?
Thank you. Thank you, Al, for your time all day today, and I'm going to give you the last opportunity to address the commission and the public with a closing statement of 30 seconds to 1 minute, reinforcing your interest in the position.
I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to meet all of you, to sit in this seat, to go through this experience. I want to thank the public for coming out, showing how invested they are in the community, how much they care about the place they live. And excuse me, I don't take that for granted. Not every area, I think, is as invested as Bay City seems to be in its success in the future of this community. So I've thoroughly enjoyed every experience, and if chosen, I look forward to being your neighbors and continuing to lead Bay City forward and being a steady hand, hopefully for the next 20 years, building upon the foundation that's already here. That's it.
Great, thank you.
I can't drop the mic, so I'll just stop.
You can't. Thank you very much, Al, again. For the commission members, we can take, with the mayor's blessing, a 10-minute break. We're at the halfway point between our four candidates. So our next candidate is ready, and let's take about, if it's okay, return at 7:50.
Let's do that. Thank you. So we're back into session, and I don't see James. Oh, is he? Hopefully he'll be back down here. So we're halfway through. And as soon as Mr. Vetrano comes back, and we'll begin. Okay, here we go.
All right. Well, thank you very much for returning for our next candidate. So this is the third candidate of 4. Rick, thank you for the time you participated today with both the residents and the employees of Bay City. I will be asking the first question this evening, and then we're going to go around to each commissioner asking questions. We'll start at your left. But the first question, which we've asked you to prepare for, is please provide a 3 to 5 minute presentation that introduces yourself and the reasons you believe you will be successful as Bay City's next city manager. The floor is yours.
Just make sure your light's on for your mic. Green light.
There we go. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Gerard, commissioners, staff, members of the community, and friends in the media. My name is Rick Heyman. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and for the honor to be considered for the position of Bay City Manager. Every finalist brings an important strength to the table, but what I believe sets me apart is that I bring 3 of the following: strong city management experience, communications and public relations expertise, and deep local ties and personal investment in this community. For nearly 10 years, I served as the top non-elected executive in the city of Burton, a community in Genesee County very similar to Bay City in both size and character, with approximately 30,000 residents. In that role, I worked daily on budgets, labor relations, public safety coordination, infrastructure, economic development, neighborhood issues, personnel management, and the difficult balancing act of delivering services while maintaining fiscal responsibility. That experience was not theoretical, it was hands-on municipal leadership. Before and throughout my municipal career, I also built a strong foundation in communications and public relations. I began in journalism, later worked in federal and state governmental communications, and later in strategic communications and public relations, serving public agencies and organizations. But beyond my resume, what matters most is this: Bay City is not just another stop along a professional journey for me. This is a community I am personally invested in for the long term. This is my home. For nearly 3 decades, my family and I have chosen to build our lives in Bay County. Even while commuting to positions in Burton, Lansing, Washington, D.C., and elsewhere, this community remained home. My children and grandchildren are here. My roots are here. My investment in Bay City's future is personal and enduring. And because of that, I care deeply about what happens here, not only as a public administrator, but as a resident, parent, and grandfather whose family's future is tied to the future of this community. I'm also a graduate of Marquette University, a Jesuit institution grounded in service and the idea of be the difference, and I'm a U.S. Army veteran. Those experiences reinforced for me that leadership is ultimately about service, accountability, teamwork, and mission. What I learned over the course of my career is that local government is where public service becomes real. It is where decisions directly affect neighborhoods, businesses, schools, infrastructure, families, and quality of life. I believe Bay City is at an important moment in its history. This community has proud traditions and strong neighborhoods, but it also has new energy emerging, younger residents, entrepreneurs, artists, professionals, and families helping shape Bay City's future and civic identity. I see that as a strength. Healthy communities honor their history while remaining open to new ideas and new opportunities. At the same time, like many communities, Bay City faces real challenges involving infrastructure, economic development, workforce retention, housing, public trust, and maintaining financial stability in a difficult environment. Addressing those challenges requires more than management alone. It requires relationships, it requires communication, and it requires bringing people together around shared goals, even when opinions differ. It calls for listening first. That is why I think Bay City's 4 bridges are such a fitting symbol for this community. Like Michigan's 2 peninsulas, Bay City's 9 wards depend on bridges to connect us. For years, Bay City's bridges have been at the center of difficult conversations about maintenance, funding, and the city's future. But bridges are meant to unite people, not divide them. I believe the role of a city manager is much the same, helping bring people together around shared goals, even when opinions differ. A city manager works for the commission, and the commission works for the voters. The responsibility of the manager is not to impose a personal agenda, but to help implement the community's vision through professional leadership, transparency, and listening. The strongest cities are not the ones where everyone agrees on everything. They are the ones where people learn how to build together despite differences. That would be my approach as city manager. If selected, my commitment would be to provide stable professional leadership focused on solutions, communication, fiscal responsibility, strong neighborhoods, economic opportunity, infrastructure improvements, and maintaining the kind of strong schools and strong community partnerships that help communities thrive long-term. Because ultimately, Bay City's future cannot be built by one person alone. We'll build it together, and I would be honored to help lead that effort. As the grandson of a small business owner, I believe in shopping local. When it comes to hiring Bay City's next city manager, I hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. How do you ensure that the needs and concerns of community stakeholders are incorporated into the city decision-making process?
Sure. I'm going to start by what I said in my opening, which is listening and being out there. I think a city manager, and some of this stuff is difficult to know till you're in the role, but I think that a city manager has to, first of all, understand that you're the boss, right? You are, in a sense, the eyes and ears on one hand, but the real eyes and ears are your citizens, staff, other leaders, and through you, they have a voice, and I work for you, and by extension, obviously, by the citizens.
I think you listen and you get public buy-in, and you get it by establishing trust. And I think that you establish trust in the community by being out there. I think as a city manager, and I'm going to say monthly because that's what's on the top of my head right now, whether it's monthly or practically it's some other number. I think the city manager should be in every neighborhood, not just uptown, not just downtown, but in each of the 9 wards in some sort of a way. I think monthly. I don't think there's any reason the city manager can't figure out a way to be at some public forum held in each of the 9 wards so they really can understand what's going on throughout the community.
Can you describe a situation you handled where the community faced a contentious issue with strong diverging opinions, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, sure, a lot of them. I mean, I guess because it was so big and I think it's something that everyone's aware of. It was the Flint water crisis, and there's another one as well that I can quickly mention, which is related, and that's for repairing water main infrastructure. But the city of Burton has only been a city for about 50 years, and they had about 100 customers. It began as a township. We had about 100 customers still on Flint infrastructure. The city didn't want to spend $1.5 million approximately to build a new water main and pull those people off of Flint water. The city of Flint did not want those people coming off of Flint water, so it was a huge political mess, and we held public meetings. I think, to be quite frank with you, I think the city and the council knew that they had to do something. You can't have one citizen coming to your meetings with boils on their skin because of water that you're providing them. That is absolutely unacceptable. So we held community meetings, and I think in every case there was something contentious in Burton. We knew that the best way to build trust is to get public buy-in first. You don't go to the community after the fact and say, this is what we're going to do. That's re-education. You educate them and get buy-in, and I think that's how you get to that.
Thank you for being here tonight. Stakeholders consistently emphasize the importance of strategic thinking and collaboration. Describe your leadership style. Provide an example of how you balance those 2 qualities while leading an organization through a challenge or significant initiative.
Yeah, could you repeat the beginning part of that? I'm sorry.
Stakeholders consistently emphasize the importance of strategic thinking and collaboration.
Yeah. So my leadership style, first let me just say, is collaborative, whether it's internally, externally, regionally, federally, or statewide, has always been collaborative. I've had the privilege to sit on several task forces, including one with former governor on pension and OPEB. And I think, those balances are not always easy. Part of what you as the commissioners do, there's 9 of you. Those are at least 9 opinions, and then there's the opinion of your community. I think it really depends, particularly on what the individual or what the particular situation is. But it all begins with listening, and then it's followed by communications. And I can't stress enough the importance of when I come to you as city manager and suggest a solution or a series of solutions, getting the feedback from you, and then you establishing the vision or the tactic or the strategy that you want me to move forward with. You asked for an example of something where I've done that. So there was, and there's some other sort of visual things that you can do with this. City of Burton gets its water from Genesee County, which at this point now is the Karagandhi Water Authority. The drain commissioner down there doesn't like plastic pipe, but as I think anyone who knows about that knows, plastic pipe is cheaper than ductile iron, and it's at a point now where it's arguably just as safe, some might even argue safer. We had a huge political fight going on, so it was important for us strategically to look to the community to get buy-in, to recommend to the council that that was the way that we went. So the first thing we did was we dug up an old ductile iron pipe, and we put it on display outside of council chambers. So every council member and every member of the community coming to meetings saw that dirty, nasty ductile iron pipe, and we ultimately were able to get 5 years of a DWRF grant and or loan actually, and replace city pipes, ductile iron, with plastic pipes. And then with the Michigan Municipal League, I put on, with a couple of other staffers who know more about the technical aspects of those sort of things, put on something at the Mackinac MML conference that we dubbed the little city that could, and we taught other communities how to do the same thing.
What do you consider essential in the relationship between a city manager, the city commission, and how would you facilitate a productive relationship with the commission?
Yeah, I feel like I'm being so repetitive, but it's so important, right? It's communication, it's transparency, and it's mutual respect. No city manager should be doing anything behind closed doors and coming and telling you how it's going to be. That to me is not a way to operate, and it's an ineffective way to operate. Yes, there are conversations that have to happen sometimes in the day-to-day operations of the city, but nothing really should be secret. You're the boss, right? And you know who your bosses are. A bunch of them are sitting back there, right? You asked me, I think the rest of that question was, what would I do to facilitate that? So something else that I think a council member has to do, and I'm not always sure that there's a diplomatic way to do this. Maybe Dana can tell you, but I think that I think that there has to be a mutual understanding of how this type of government operates. And I think that not only is the commission the boss and the people their boss, no individual commissioner should be establishing their personal agenda with the city manager, because you only make decisions collectively. There's 9 members, right? 5 of you have to agree on most things, sometimes more than that. So as long as everybody understands that, and I'll say this, if you select me, I'll try to gently remind you of that when we're having individual conversations. Let me add, that's not to preclude having individual conversations with commissioners. That's just to say, I may gently remind you that, do you have 4 more with you? You know?
I was writing. What was that last?
It's okay. Did I answer it? If I didn't, let me know.
Honestly, that was a great answer. I don't even need the follow-up one, so thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
All right. Imagine you arrive in Bay City and quickly hear different priorities from residents, staff, and elected officials. Resources are not available to address all priorities. What process would you use to determine what should receive immediate attention versus long-term focus?
Okay, so there are emergencies, right? That's always a top priority, handling an emergency. And sometimes those emergencies are not yet emergencies, but they're emergent. But ultimately, it's your vision. You set the agenda, and you come to me and we have conversations, and you help set priorities. Because I guarantee you, as you all know, I met with all the department heads today, and certainly had a meet and greet where I did hear about all the different priorities, or many of the different priorities. And, you know, staff, department heads, their job is to advocate for their department. And they're always going to want more than the other department in some way. And our job, the commission, and my job, is to find what that balance is, limited resources and priorities. I've prioritized those kinds of things in municipal government. I've done that in the private sector, and I've done that in the military. And nobody has unlimited resources. I think the process is conversation. I mean, I could, off the top of my head, tell you, just from that meeting earlier today, 6 or 7 priorities. Not every one of those priorities, though, necessitates the kind of spending you might think. There are other ways to address those priorities, at least in the short run, that don't always involve a ton of money. You know what they determination and imagination and a knowledge of all the various government resources that are out there.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for being here today. So recruiting and retaining staff are priorities for the city. What strategies have you used to successfully recruit and retain talented employees?
So let me talk about like the most difficult. I had 8 unions in the city of Burton. I know how to work with unions, but believe it or not, unions can be pretty helpful with retention because of all the resources that they have in terms of interacting with their members. I'm considering a strategy or an instance, police, law enforcement, here is public safety, but in Burton they were separate entities. Tough. Burton is in Genesee County, as you know. It borders the relatively well-off county of Oakland, the larger community of Flint, and some of those communities can offer a lot more. Burton had an all-white police force, and given some of the things that have happened nationally, I was convinced that that couldn't sustain itself, and we were several lawsuits away from that happening. And in fact, there were lawsuits. So I was committed to diversity, gender diversity, and racial diversity, and all the other kinds of diversity that you really need to do, particularly with a police department. So I was selected to be on a National League of Cities conference with six mayors and 6 other city leaders. It was a year-long cohort, and we talked about how to address those very issues. And then I gave a proposal, my proposal of how we were doing it in Burton when we were at a national conference in Los Angeles. And let me tell you that the solutions are investing in your own people early. We offered things like paying for the police academy and the fire academy as it came down. We, it would include a commitment by those people, by the people who were members. We went to high schools, and we found people who wanted to stay, and they wanted the police and firefighter, but they didn't want to go to Flint, and they didn't want to go to Oakland County. So we greatly improved. We did get, we were able to diversify the police force, and with racial minorities, with more women, and with people who fell into other protected classes. Did that answer that, Mayor?
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Bay City has nearly 300 employees across 8 unions. Tell us about the largest and most complex team you have led. Describe a significant challenge or opportunity you navigated with that team. Specify your leadership role and the results achieved.
Do you want me to identify the largest union that I had, or does it not have to be a union? Okay, well, I'll give you, I hate to be so police heavy, but we had, two police unions in Burton for the command officers and for the rank and file. I don't know that I'd characterize a relationship as difficult, but unions want what's best for their membership, and the city wants what's best for the city as a whole. There were some challenges. There were some challenges with what council wanted, particularly in terms of pension and other post-employment benefits, and getting to a point where we could work that out and still retain people and recruit people. It was a tough going in terms of those particular unions are very strong and sometimes very loud, but they also understood in no uncertain terms that what was good for Burton was good for their membership, and I was heavily involved in contract negotiations and heavily involved in cutting deals on OPEB and pensions that were feasible, and one of those was getting rid of lifetime benefits, obviously not retroactively, but moving forward, lifetime health benefits. That's hard. People become your employees, and they get promised that, and then people look to yours and they want it, so now you've got that two-tiered system, right? You have people that are getting their lifetime benefits, and you have people that aren't because the contract changes. That's contentious. Nobody walks out of that happy, but some of that stuff's necessary.
Thank you for being here. Stakeholders identified visibility, accessibility, and rebuilding trust as desirable traits for the next city manager. How would you establish credibility and trust within your first 6 months in Bay City?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about that. That's not a surprising question because I live here and I understand, and sometimes to my own detriment, I read social media. So yeah, I know what's going on, and trust is hard to rebuild, but it comes with, again, listening, being out there, and transparency. And if I build trust with all of you, which I would hope to do very quickly within that time, you're leaders in helping me build trust with the community, and I think, again, quite honestly, I really think getting out into every ward and letting them know that Ward 7 and Ward 8 and Ward 9 are just as important, and we're just invested in them in different ways, perhaps, than we are in Wards 1 and Wards 2. I have, just by way of explanation, I have all 5 of my adult children are living here, as I said earlier, and I hope I got the wards right. My son just bought a house, I think, in Ward 7. I have a daughter living in Ward 8, one in Ward 9, one, in all full disclosure, lives in Coquitlam, but she's looking for a house in Bay City, and I would say hopefully by early fall she'll have a house in Bay City. I don't know what ward, can't promise. You guys are free to lobby, right? Come to Ward 1, right? 3, there you go, 3. Do I see any other hands? But yeah, that's how you rebuild trust. And the other thing is I really, really strongly believe in buy-in first. They become vested in it. You can educate your constituents on why something's necessary, even something that they may not fully support when they first hear about it. You can get there with them if you tell them about it first and not worry if the first thing they're going to do is, get on social media and tell you why it's a horrible idea and why everybody in city government is corrupt and they're trying to steal your money. They're not.
Thank you.
Housing availability, affordability, and neighborhood investment emerged as themes from the stakeholder survey. Please describe a project or initiative you led that addressed neighborhood revitalization or community development. What was your role, and what lessons did you take from the experience that could apply to Bay City?
Yeah, so obviously my experiences in Burton. Burton has similar issues, old housing stock, a significant amount of rental units, which aren't necessarily a bad thing. I think there has to be a balance. I'm not against rented before myself. I can think of several projects, one in particular, and the negotiations for this were very, very interesting. They want to come in and make money, and they want to assure they sell their houses. So we worked with a developer to do that. One of the things we got out of it, which goes back to the police and fire stuff, was police, firefighters, and teachers were given assistance and even financial help to move into those housing units after they were built. In the end, you have to get concessions in your negotiations like that before you start talking about building houses. They have to give the city something. And when I say give the city something, I don't mean Rick Heyman, I don't mean these commissioners, I mean the people sitting behind me. They have to give them something, whether that is some inducement for certain professions like teachers and firefighters and police, or whether that is finding innovative financing. This particular company did self-financing, and those are sometimes good options. You have to be careful because there are an awful lot of dishonest people out there, but you have to know to ask the right questions.
Thank you.
Bay City seeks strong financial management while maintaining focus on core services. Describe your approach to budgeting and long-term financial sustainability.
So I was heavily involved in the budget in Burton, so much to the point that every year I wrote the summary, which is 7 to 9 pages maybe, for the CAFR, for the annual report. I guess the approach, to long-term planning is establishing priorities. I think you have to make some calls on both the short-term and the long-term feasibility of things like I noticed when I looked at your CAFR that the city has borrowed from, particularly from the Electric Utility Enterprise Fund, which probably everybody here at this table is familiar enough to know that you'll have your auditors and others talk about your financial health, and one of the things they will say is you don't want your enterprise funds to be too healthy. But one question that I have, and I don't know this about Bay City, I would certainly find out, I may find that out, before you even make your decision, but I'm curious as to whether when you borrow from the enterprise fund, how do you pay that back? And when you pay that back, are you paying it back with interest? Because remember who funds those enterprise funds? Your ratepayers. And there are always options. Whether these are good options or not, you have to take a holistic look at the budget. There are options of giving money back when you have a healthy or overly healthy enterprise fund. You can certainly do that and certainly be popular. I don't know, given the circumstance, if it's the responsible thing to do. I'd have to take a much deeper dive into your budget. But it's not just that. It's also making sure that the electric utility doesn't lose money by lending money to the general fund and getting it back at less value because of the CPI. So those are things that you can talk about. Long-range planning primarily is about prioritization. I'll tell you one thing I was really pleased about when I traveled around the city, and even someone who's been here for 30 years, I didn't know this. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. But I was able to go out and look at your DPW garages. That was a struggle. We never got that in Burton when I was there. So we'd buy things like Vactors, high-end machinery, expensive machinery, and guess where it sat all winter? Out in the yard. So how do you think that helps your depreciation? You know, sometimes you got to bite the bullet and make the big expense because there's an ROI there. You know, and the return on investment there is a better situation when it comes to depreciation. I'm not sure, Commissioner, if I fully answered your question. If I didn't, I'm ready for follow-up.
No follow-up, thank you.
Based on what you've learned about Bay City, what do you believe are the 3 most important priorities for the next city manager, and why are you the right person to lead those efforts?
You know, I would love to turn that around and say, you all collectively or individual tell me what the priorities are, but I know I'm here to be interviewed and you want to hear what my thoughts are having been here. Let me tell you the stuff that I heard just at this meeting and in the run-up to me being here for this interview. You know, I know a person or two in Bay City, and so I talked to them. And I said, what are your priorities and what are the big complaints? You know, the elephant in the room are the bridges. What do we do about the bridges? We've done something about the bridges, but what's the responsible thing to do about the bridges? There are options, and I'd be happy to, you know, to talk to you if I'm selected about what I see as the options, but more importantly, I'd like to hear from you what you see. I got a very lengthy copy of I guess it was one of the contracts because I asked Dana about it earlier, and I think that one was 175 pages. I'm a pretty. I understand documents like that pretty well. It's just a knack that I've had. I looked at the document. There's some options. To me, the best solution on the bridges, and I will offer this. There are an awful lot of people who, if they had to pay $15 a month to use those bridges, which is still, by the way, a heck of a lot more than one crossing of the Mackinac Bridge, which I think when I was up there, it was $4.07 because I paid with a card one way. But I think that if you had to pay $15, not everyone, I understand that this is doable for everybody, but that's $180 a year. Expensive for some people, expensive for single parents, but a lot less than it is now. My wife and I eat out a lot, probably more than we should. We're downtown a lot. We're in all the wards or restaurants in other wards that we've frequented for years. I don't want to give anybody a plug. And she prefers the Myers and the Kroger on this side of the river. So I'm cheap. I'll shop on the other side of the river when I go to Kroger, which is why she doesn't send me, or Meijer. I guess she just likes to set up better over there. So the bridges, yeah, the bridges. We have to have more conversation about the bridges. Roads are absolutely a concern. There are answers to roads too, and they may not be as financially, they'll be difficult, but they may not be as bad as some people may think. I've got a lot of experience with roads. I was a liaison in Genesee County to the TAC and I want to lose the name of it. Let me see, the Metro Alliance. And I also served as the alternate on the I-69 International Trade Corridor, just as way of background. So yeah, I think roads, so infrastructure in general, because then I can cheat and then I might get 2 more answers that are on priorities. I think jobs, there's a lot of communication about jobs. I just found out today that a project I was involved in, by the way, I was involved in because a former deputy city manager in Bay City, Steve Black, called me 2 days before Christmas, and I always answer my phone 24/7, despite what my kids say. If it's them, maybe not. Everyone else, I answer the phone. Steve called me 2 days before Christmas and said, these guys are serious, take their call, do whatever they ask. So it was a developer, a consulting firm out of Kansas City. They flew in, we met on Christmas Eve day, and that city now has added 3,000 jobs to the city of Burton. Now, they don't all live in the city of Burton, but they sure buy there, whether it's their gas. I don't know if they're still buying gas or if they're hiking in, but, given the sticker price on gas right now. Roads. But I think there are other issues that might not be right in your face like that. I think there are housing issues that have to be addressed. In general, I think it's building this community, continuing to build this community for the people who not only live here, but the people who we want to come here, which is, frankly, anybody, right?
So how are you the right person to lead those priorities?
How am I going to build those priorities? Through you. I feel like maybe that seems a little bit trite, but it's just honest. It's through you. I can set priorities, but I need direction. I need to know what your vision is. I'll give you an example on...
Can you speak in the mic, please?
Oh, geez, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was trying to get comfortable, so I'll come back to being uncomfortable, leaning forward. Did you hear what I said before, or did I? Okay. So let's see if I can remember what I said before. I think through you, I establish priorities, and you give me your vision. I can certainly know enough to come back to you with directions, but every one of you, based on your ward, based on your particular point of view, and based on what your constituents are telling you, are going to come and say, most important thing to me is roads. Somebody else up here is going to say the most important thing is sustainable jobs. First of all, which one of those requires a heavy financial investment? Which one of those might be more focused on, talk about jobs, more focused on meetings with job providers, more focused on ensuring that Bay City is a community where people want to come and live. Not all of that stuff costs money. I'm going to just gaze through something here and see if I'm forgetting something in terms of what I felt. I knew this question was coming and what I think, some of the most important issues are. So infrastructure, clearly, economic development, making this a friendly place, and I think it is a friendly place for small business. I think it's a very friendly place. I mean, look at what we have here.
Thank you for sharing what you think some of the priorities are. The second part of the question is, why are you the right person to then lead the efforts in attacking those priorities?
Yeah, sure. I have been, in my 10 years in Burton, was dropped into pretty much every city job that you can imagine, along with my city management work, things like purchasing, things like community development block grants, and I think I bring to the table the experience to make all those things happen because of that. Who would have ever thought that a history and English major would know anything about roads? I'm not pretending to be an expert on roads, probably know enough to be dangerous, but I'm the right guy because of that, and I'm the right guy because I understand how this form of government works, and I understand how to listen, and I do listen.
I do have a follow-up. I appreciate that you seem to be really heavy on the listening and the communicating, but I'm looking for somebody who can help get things done in Bay City. You said earlier that in listening downstairs that there were, with determination, imagination, and knowledge of government resources, that you could get stuff done, and I'd really love to hear more about that. I want to hear more about how you could be the one to get stuff done here in Bay City.
So, first of all, I have a record of getting things done in Burton, but also in my other work. I'll give you an example. The city of Grand Rapids recently went through a master plan. And I start with master plans with one thing. Master plans are great, but not if they sit on the shelves. And that's where action comes in. There were listening sessions. I know that I've said enough about listening, but there were listening sessions. I think it's relationships. I have relationships at every level of government. I started backward. I started at the federal level, went to the state level, and then ended up in local government. Paid for all my sins at the previous two levels where they don't have to pay for anything. They just come up with supposed great ideas. I think it's that, Commissioner. I think that I've built relationships. I've built trusting relationships. I know how to continue to do that. And that's why I'm the right guy. I could sit up here and talk until the cows come home. I can come to your commission meetings and talk and throw all the right words. But in the end, you're judged by what you're able to get done, and I know how to get it done.
I have one more follow-up if we have time.
Okay.
So have you had experience pushing back against a commissioner? Like if you thought that a commissioner or an elected official was making a wrong choice or going in a wrong direction, can you give me an example of what you did with that? Because out of concern for the community as a whole and what you learned from that experience.
The first one that comes to mind, I wasn't prepared for that question, but the first one that comes to mind is water rates. Elected officials don't like to raise water rates, and we push back hard on the importance of raising water rates because it was the only way to get that fund healthy again. Council went to the drain commissioner's office and tried to get the drain commissioner to come in and say we were doing something wrong. He's an elected official too. That was difficult. We just kept pushing and pushing. Finally, we hired a financial firm to come in and tell us why we had to raise rates. I hate to have to say that, but in a meeting where I'm trying to get hired. But the truth of the matter is there are some times where you have to push back, and quite often it is on something financial. You guys might pay the price when water rates go up. You might not get elected. That is, if you want to get elected, right, or reelected. But sometimes you have to push back, and we pushed back, and we got it done. But I want to make sure I'm clear about this. We got it done with a compromise. The compromise worked. In the end, council was happy, and we were happy, and we were able to educate the public on why it was necessary. Generally, the public is okay with rate increases to a point if you can educate them on why they're absolutely necessary. And again, I'm going back to buy-in. You got to get out there. That's how you get things done. You got to get people understanding at the very least that it's okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks again, Rick, for your time this evening, for your time all afternoon. I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds to 1 minute to kind of close the interview out before we close this interview. The floor is yours.
Okay, if I can just have 1 minute, I just want to look something up here. So listen, Bay City is this is not necessarily about selling myself, but I hope you'll all understand, as a huge advocate for this city, it's sometimes very difficult to hear the negativity. I guess I could stay off social media, but then I wouldn't know where my kids are at night. I'm kidding, they're all grown. Bay City is a great community, and every member of this commission and of staff and of leadership should be proud of this city. We're not without challenges. My focus is on how do we do this together. When Commissioner Zanotti disagrees with Commissioner DeWitt, I'll say that because he doesn't appear to be here, right? That's okay. That's okay. That's what democracy is all about. We live in a world right now where you're either on Team A or Team B, and the folks that are on the other side are the enemies. They're not the enemies. We are neighbors in Bay City, and that's the message that I want to carry forward if I'm selected for this role. We're neighbors. We need to work together. Anybody that's in your position, you're pretty tough. I'm pretty tough too. I can take the slings and arrows, but I'm always going to come back to, can't we all just get along and do what's best to build this community for the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take about 2 minutes, so a short break this time between interviews, and then we'll have our fourth interview. Thank you.
I'll gamble it.
Thanks. I always like to joke you were tough, but tough but fair. It's so hard to know on that question.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We're at our fourth interview this evening. Thank you very much for being here this evening, for spending your afternoon with the City of Bay City. We have some formal questions that the commissioners will ask. I will ask the first one, and then they will be starting to your left and work themselves around. But we'll begin with, we've asked you to prepare a 3 to 5 minute presentation that introduces yourself and the reasons you believe you would be successful as Bay City's next city manager. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Shannon Alaba. I grew up in the Tri-Cities and graduated from Saginaw Valley State University. Like many people from this region, I left because I didn't see the opportunity to build the life that I envisioned. 6 years ago, my family and I chose to come home because this is where we want to build our lives. Bay City has always been a part of that story. Today, my daughter spends Friday evenings at Studio 23 learning pottery, while I work nearby at Legacy Coffee. Long before this position opened, I found myself paying attention to the city's challenges, its opportunities, and the people working to move it forward. Over the last 22 years, I've built a career in local government, helping communities navigate crisis, organizational change, and rebuilding public trust. For the past decade, I've served the city of Boulder, Colorado, a full-service city of over 100,000 residents, 1,500 staff, and a budget of over $521 million. I've advised executive leadership on organizational strategy, crisis response, and community engagement. When organizations faced their hardest moments, when trust was strained and the margin for error was small, I was trusted to help lead through it. What I've learned in complex municipal environments is that leadership is tested when things go wrong, when the community is watching closely, and when trust has to be earned every single day. I started my career as a 911 dispatcher. Before I had ever advised an elected official or sat in a leadership meeting, I spent years as the voice on the other end of the line when someone's world was falling apart. That experience shaped my instincts for composure, accountability, and service. When I joined the city of Sanford, Florida, the community was still reeling from the death of Trayvon Martin, one of the most scrutinized moments in a modern American law enforcement history. My responsibility was helping rebuild trust, not through spin, but through consistency, honesty, and presence. We showed up, listened, communicated clearly, and over time helped restore confidence between the city and the community. Later, when an encampment crisis emerged in Colorado, I helped coordinate a response that brought together public safety, parks, housing, and community service, balancing compassion, practicality, and public safety. What those experiences taught me is that effective local government leadership ultimately comes down to trust, coordination, and consistency under pressure. My approach has always been to find what's missing, build what's needed, and make sure it actually works for people. I grew up in the Tri-Cities, spending a great deal of time in Bay City, and those connections have stayed with me throughout my life. My daughter is growing up here now. When I sit across from a department head, a union steward, a business owner on Center Avenue, or a resident in a neighborhood that needs attention, I do so as someone personally invested in getting it right. I also understand that visibility and presence matter in this role, and I intend to be fully engaged in this community every single day. That combination, deep regional roots, and experience in leading large, complex municipal environments is what I bring to this opportunity. I believe the city manager's role is to be a trusted partner to the commission. My approach is to identify common ground, align resources responsibly, and execute consistently. Fiscal discipline is not separate from good governance, it is good governance. I've worked in unionized environments and understand that strong relationships with employees are essential to delivering results for residents. Respectful, honest communication with staff is not a soft skill. It's how organizations perform effectively over time. Residents deserve a city government that communicates clearly, follows through on commitments, and delivers consistently on the basics. Over time, that is how trust is rebuilt. Not through promises, but through visible results people can feel in their neighborhoods. I chose to come home because I believe in this community. I've spent my career preparing to lead through complex challenges. And if selected, I will bring that experience, accountability, and commitment to Bay City every single day. Thank you.
How do you ensure the needs and concerns of community stakeholders are incorporated into the decision-making process?
I think the first step in truly hearing from community members and their concerns is open and transparent, easily accessible information from local government. It's hard for a community member to engage if they don't clearly know what is going on within their local government. I think it is important to listen to community concerns and to do our best to help make a difference to better their quality of lives. I heard from many community members tonight, business owners talking about their challenges that they hope if I'm selected I can help navigate quality of life issues, and people that just love the city and were interested, and it's all about listening. It's about knowing what is possible and not possible, and within the framework that local government operates, do our best to help improve the quality of life for people.
Thank you. I do have a follow-up. Can you describe a situation where there was a contentious community issue with strong differing opinions and what you learned from that experience?
One contentious community issue that comes to mind and is still contentious is the issue of encampments within Boulder, which is a project that I lead and support. And there's a few different viewpoints to what is going on in the community. There are public spaces that government does have the responsibility to keep them safe and welcoming for all people. People that are within the encampments also have a right to be there. However, in some cases, their behavior is not going to fly. They may be doing something illegal, something that is unsafe, and so while they have a right to occupy the space, they do not have a right to the illegal behavior that is impacting other community members. And so in order to really make a difference, because there's one faction in the community that thinks that people should be able to camp everywhere. If the city cannot provide enough shelter beds or partner with a community partner to have a shelter bed, then they should be able to be wherever they can find a space. So there's one viewpoint, and then there is another viewpoint that is 180 different of they do not have a right to be in a public space if they cannot abide by public laws. And so it's a matter of listening to both sides, respecting and acknowledging that as a local government leader, we want spaces to be safe and welcoming for all. However, we also have an obligation to help serve our most vulnerable population. And that is in Boulder. It looks like community partners and city staff working with these people. They're held accountable when a crime is committed, but there's also pathways to help better their situation. It takes generally a number of contacts before someone is even willing to consider the idea that their life can be different. And those vulnerable community members deserve the same respect and level of service as the community members that want access to their public space as well. So it's really just balancing and acknowledging viewpoints and also doing what's right to serve the community as a whole.
Thank you for being here today. Stakeholders consistently emphasize the importance of strategic thinking and collaboration. Describe your leadership style, provide an example of how you balance those two qualities while leading an organization through a challenge or significant initiative.
When I joined the city of Sanford in Florida, there was zero community trust, and rightfully so. The death of Trayvon Martin wasn't this happened and the community became in turmoil. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. There are years of questionable behavior, and that was, everything erupted from that moment. When I joined the department, it was really hard. It was helping the department see that in order to move forward, we had to be completely transparent about what we were doing that needed to be done differently, about communicating with transparency. And there were a few times where we messed up along the way. Like we were trying to move the organization forward, but things happened internally with the department, or we tried an engagement initiative that really fell flat. But it was continuing to acknowledge that we were trying, really listening, and over time, the community could see that we were a different organization, that we were open to becoming better, and that we wanted to build something new together. And in 2 years, it took 2 years before there was really meaningful change to take place. It happened, and it's one of my proudest moments to date, because most people didn't think that Sanford would come back from it, and it is a thriving community.
Thank you for your time here today. What do you consider essential in the relationship between a city manager and the city commission, and how would you facilitate a productive relationship with the commission?
I think there are two qualities that are essential. And the first is open communication and access to timely information in a way that is easily digestible. It should not be a commissioner doesn't always have time to read a 300-page report with jargon, or learn everything that someone who is already an expert in their field or department head knows. It's the responsibility of the city manager to help bring them up to speed in a timely way, so when that community discussion or commission discussion about what options truly exist and how we move forward, that education and that baseline information is already there.
Thank you, and I have a follow-up for that. Can you please describe a situation where you pushed back on an elected official or board member because you believed a different policy direction would better serve the organization, and what did you learn from that experience?
To be honest, I can't recall a time when I've pushed back on an elected official. I've always had the mentality that I am going to produce very thorough information, and it is not necessarily my place to push back, because I've already offered the background information, and in some cases, the recommendation from city staff. But in a community where it's not just city staff that makes a decision. There are more pieces at play, and commissioners come to the table as experts of the needs, the wants of the communities, the neighborhoods that they're representing. And so I can't think of a time that it would be my place to do so, because my job is to serve the will of council, not to debate what is the best path forward, because there's always a number of ways to get there.
Thank you very much.
Imagine you arrive in Bay City and quickly hear different priorities from residents, staff, and elected officials. Resources are not available to address all priorities. What process would you use to determine what should receive immediate attention versus long-term focus?
I feel like there must have been a few plans at tonight's meet and greet, because I definitely heard conflicting priorities about what the city should focus on. And every concern that was brought to me was not a surprise. Many of them were tied to core infrastructure issues. And so I don't have an immediate, I arrive here and I am going to give you all the answers and we are going to fix this. But what I can tell you that I've been thinking about is we have to find a way to begin to move forward. And unless additional revenue streams are coming in, which is highly unlikely, because in doing my due diligence, staff are going for every grant opportunity, like every opportunity that's available, they are working so hard to go for it. And so it is, I'm not saying with certainty, but it is highly likely that this will become a community conversation of, these are the core services that the city offers. This is the level of service that you currently receive and the cost to deliver that service to you. There are options in decreasing that level of service, increasing that level of service, but there is only one pot of money. And that's not even taking into account that many services are from dedicated funds. But I believe, with what I know, that is the place where Bay City is likely at. And it's that information and that's community conversation that will help us move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So recruiting and retaining staff are priorities for the city.
Yes.
What strategies have you used to successfully recruit and retain talented employees?
I have used two different techniques with great success. The first is when I was employed at the Eagle County Sheriff's Office. Even the years ago that I was there, hiring and keeping police officers, sheriff's deputies, it's always been a challenge. And when I arrived, something that I noticed was that the time it took to recruit, test, background, bring them in was unacceptable. We were losing viable candidates to other organizations simply because we were too slow. So I was able to get support in streamlining the process, where we were able to cut the start to finish time by 50%, and we were able to become fully staffed, which prior to my arrival hadn't happened in the last 10 years. The other recruitment method that seems to work well for me now is that I have a very solid reputation. I know I don't come, I do know people in Bay City, having grown up here, and I had more connections than I realized at the meet and greet. But very quickly, staff, once they see the kind of person that I am, the leader that I am, the way that I treat people, I believe in empowering staff and giving them the tools that they need. I'm not a micromanager unless you need one. That the word of mouth has been all that I've needed to recruit staff, because people that are drawn to local government, they're drawn to local government because they want to make a difference. They also want to work for and with someone that is a good human. And I am. And so it's been pretty easy.
Thank you.
Bay City has nearly 300 employees across 8 unions. Tell us about the largest and most complex team you have led. Describe a significant challenge or opportunity you have navigated with your team. Specify your leadership role and the results achieved.
So I would go back to my experience supporting our Safe and Managed Public Spaces team, our approach to encampments in Boulder. Homeless have been a part of Boulder since before I was even born, but the behaviors of homeless individuals, especially in the last 10 years in that area, had changed dramatically. And we were very much, when I started, a hands-off organization because there weren't any public safety concerns, there weren't any complaints. Everyone was able to coexist, and that changed. And the city was a little slow to react because we didn't realize at the time what was happening. And we ended up with a very large encampment under our 9th Street Bridge. And it had grown to the size of, this was no longer a police are gonna come out and ask people to move along. It had become a full-on tent city. And so multiple departments started to meet and brainstorm how we might approach this issue. And when I was first brought onto the team, I was brought on as someone that was just going to help with communications, both internally and externally. And what became quickly evident is that because I was in communications, because I had longevity within the city and municipal government, I was able to make connections between departments of, sometimes it was, this behavior, code can't go out at this time because it's going to impact public safety. I made connections of, let's talk through the logistics between departments, about what the operational plan looks like. It wasn't something I planned on doing, but I just knew communication. I knew where things had the potential to go wrong, and I ended up taking a leadership role in what was going to be a one-time cleanup, turned into, now it's we call it our One Boulder team because it's multi-departmental, but I am on the executive board of that team. It's multiple departments, so this isn't Shannon came in and saved the day, but I was able to help move the team along, and I was able to set the stage for the right conversations to happen internally. So when it was time to execute, the execution was flawless. And we helped the people both in the encampment and the community members who wanted to reclaim their public space.
Thank you for being here this evening. Stakeholders identified visibility, accessibility, and rebuilding trust as desirable traits for the next city manager. How would you establish credibility and trust within your first 6 months in Bay City?
Well, I would immediately begin meeting with city staff, community partners, and residents at large. I've already made it a point to attend community meetings, to attend commission meetings, because I both want to hear what's going on and also meet the people that are impacted and involved. And I would continue doing that, not only in my first 6 months, but that would just be something that I do as city manager. And from there, it's listening to those concerns and addressing them, but also as an expert in local government, helping city staff learn how to package information in a way that it is more digestible, that you don't have to read a 300-page report to understand what's going on, and that you don't have to attend a commission meeting if you don't want to be a part of the process, to have a voice. And I've thought about what that could look like. I've heard and read social media posts about, the city needs someone on social media accounts, community meetings, walking through wards. I think that there is a number of approaches that would work, but my kind of first round of making information more accessible would be to make cleaning up our city website a priority. I know when I was trying to do my homework, there were a number of bad links that I encountered or outdated information. So it'd be a matter of helping and supporting staff in cleaning that up, and then also making that, again, bite meal snack information more available, because we can't ask people to engage with us if we haven't provided them with the information first.
Thank you.
Housing availability, affordability, and neighborhood investment emerged as themes from the stakeholder survey. Please describe a project or initiative you led that addressed neighborhood revitalization or community development. What was your role, and what lessons did you take from the experience that could apply to Bay City?
I'm going to be completely transparent and say that I have not worked directly on a project that is focused on housing. What I have supported is the economic vitality of the city. And that is something for a number of years the city of Boulder, they didn't worry about it because they didn't need to. However, the city is reliant on sales tax, and things took a turn with COVID, and the city never recovered. And so they are now in a position where they don't have enough money to make ends meet without continuing to make cuts. And so one initiative that over the last year I've supported and have people on my team that support is, how do we make it easier to do business in Boulder? And that has ranged from everything of interviewing someone that started a business and figuring out what that experience looked like, what was hard, what was easy, what could we possibly do different? And so it is finding ways to make it easier to do business. It is working collaboratively with community partners that are already experts in that field that we never collaborated with before. From what I've learned in researching Bay City, you can pick the problem, and there is probably one or two community groups already here and doing work. I'm not gonna come in and say I'm an expert in the area that they're trying to solve, but I do feel like I can help bring people together, so we're not all doing the same thing separately. We're working together to use the resources that we have available to us to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
I think Commissioner Tenney had a follow-up.
Yes, thank you. Just really quick, you mentioned that you haven't worked on a project directly that involves housing, but you also stated that you helped on issues where people were experiencing homelessness. So are you telling me that folks in encampments did not get housing, or can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes. So we very much have a Housing and Human Services Department that works with community partners in placing people in homes. We've also worked on building temporary homes with wraparound services, but I'm not going to take credit for work that another department or another expert did. They're definitely part of the conversations that we have, but that work does happen to a certain extent independently.
Understood, hence you saying directly. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bay City seeks strong financial management while maintaining focus on core services. Describe your approach to budgeting and long-term financial sustainability.
My approach to a long-term financial strategy is really focusing first on the core service levels. I know Bay City is already very lean, and they are, in talking to staff, because I straight up asked, I was like, is there, are there pennies under the couch cushion? Are there, things that we're doing that don't make sense anymore that might save money? They said, you should look because you're new and bring an outside perspective, but that is something that we think about every year, every time we're going to make a major purchase, to make sure that it makes sense. And so I would have that same approach. I'm not going to come here and say, I've got this brilliant idea that no one's ever heard of that's going to save the day. I believe in fiscal responsibility. I believe in focusing on core services. That might mean that some of the nice-to-haves don't happen, but that is the world that we live in. And I will also say that I believe strongly in the people that are serving the government, the people that are in each department, and so taking care of them as well, making sure that we are paying a competitive wage, that benefits are good, so we are attracting the best and the brightest. That's really crucial to moving us forward as well. I believe in efficiency, but I don't believe that should ever come at the expense of people.
Based on what you have learned about Bay City, what do you believe are the 3 most important priorities for the next city manager, and why are you the right person to lead those efforts?
I believe that the 3 most, I don't know if I would use the word most important, but the 3 issues that I would focus my immediate attention to are the communication coming out of the city. I don't know what communication between city leadership and the commission looks like now, but I suspect that based on how I communicate externally and internally now, it would look slightly different, possibly than what you're receiving, because communication is my specialty. And it's really important to me that the people that are making these key decisions have all of the information readily available to them in ample amount of time. Not that that's not happening, but I know with this commission, there are people that have recently joined, and without having that longevity, there's also there's a need to provide additional information. Someone shouldn't have to learn how, all the ins and outs of being a commissioner and the background of a topic or an issue that started long before they took office. And so I would make that a priority to help get them up to speed as best they can, which I'll be getting up to speed as well, until commissioners tell me that it's not needed. The information flow is important. I do believe starting to focus on a long-term financial strategy is important, and I would definitely shop the idea of a strategic plan for the city. In doing my homework, there are a number of really well-written plans for the city, from the master plan to department and project specific, but what I haven't been able to uncover, and I would be happy if someone tell me I just wasn't looking in the right place, is a strategic plan that has the goal, exactly what we're trying to achieve, and a timeline attached to it, and a budget attached to it. Because if everything is a priority in this city, then nothing is a priority. If we don't have a measurable goal tied to an outcome, how are we going to turn around and tell the community that we were successful or not? And so those are 2 major initiatives that I would begin working on. I know I've heard and I've driven, the roads are an issue. There's contentious, feelings over the bridge, which I don't know enough about that right now with what I believe is possible pending litigation going on. So to a certain extent on the third priority, I would defer to the commission. But whatever priority it is, I think that it is a matter of building a groundwork because you have to walk before you run.
Of those priorities, how are you the right person to lead those priorities if selected for the role?
I think that I'm the right person because I have ties to this area, and I know other applicants do as well. But for me, this job feels so personal, and I just feel this commitment and this desire to help move this community forward, because I want my daughter to feel differently than I did when I was 23. I graduated college. I want her to feel like there is opportunity right at home. My experience in local government has been helping organizations move forward, to help staff, leadership, elected officials find that common ground. Communication is all about helping people get things done. I didn't know that when I got into communication, but I quickly learned that, and I have a skill set that I don't believe that anyone else has in that area, and community engagement as well. I don't have all of the answers, but I have a lot of ideas about what has worked in communities, what hasn't worked in communities, and so I bring that experience to the commission, to the community, to have a conversation about, what do you think of these ideas? I'm not coming here with all of the answers, but I'm committed to being a strong partner and helping move things forward.
I do have another follow-up.
Okay.
Back to the largest and most complex team you led, I don't think that I heard the answer to that. I heard an example of a difficult situation that you managed, but what's the largest and most complex team that you've led?
I know when I gave the answer to that question, I was thinking of encampments, which internally that would be comprised of police, fire, parks and recreation, code, utilities, open space and mountain parks, the city attorney's office, and city leadership. I can also think of other examples where the team was not as large, but there were elected officials involved as well. One example is in assault weapon ban ordinance that the city of Boulder was looking at enacting regionally in order to make more of an impact. And so I worked with elected officials too in the city of Boulder, and then also our 5 surrounding communities, to help figure out language that was agreed upon, and also to help with the community messaging, because we needed to be all on the same page if we were going to move this forward.
I have one follow-up I was going to ask you about. You mentioned your opening statement about working with labor unions, and we do have 8 labor unions we work with the city. What is your experience? Have you negotiated or been part of negotiating teams at all? Or?
No, so I will be completely transparent. I have never sat at the table of a union negotiation, so that would definitely be a learning curve for me, and that's something I actually spoke with department heads earlier today. I have been involved. I have done my best to be informed, but that direct experience, I do not come to the table having it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Again, for your time this evening, for your time this afternoon, and I do want to reserve the last 30 seconds to a minute for you to provide any closing comments before the interview ends.
I just want to say thank you for your time, for your hospitality. This process has meant a great deal to me and the community as well, and I do certainly hope that I've shared enough about my story and my why, that you're willing to give me the opportunity to serve you in the community. Whether you do or you do not, I'm here, I'm gonna keep showing up. I do care, and I know you have a really tough decision ahead of you to make. This decision on who you hire is gonna, hopefully be the force of the community, and so I definitely don't envy your job, and just again, thank you for even considering me. It means a great deal.
All right, thank you.
If I may, Mayor, just briefly before I turn the meeting back to you to close, I did want to address the questions earlier. There will be an opportunity for individuals to give reaction or comment to the commission regarding the candidates. We're asking that that be received by Friday morning, and the video will be posted this evening for individuals to watch if they would like to. I will create a report of all the comments, which do come in anonymously, and provide them to the commission post receipt Friday morning.
Thank you. All right. Our next order of business, again, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the candidates. I do want to thank all the audience too. But next order of business calls for public input. So under the rules of the City Commission, each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to speak. Commissioner Coakley will serve as the timekeeper. So this is the opportunity for citizens to address the commission regarding any agenda item or any other matter. If anyone wishes to address the commission, please come forward, print your name on the registration sheet, and state your name and address for the record. We'd like to come forward for public input. Okay, everybody's ready to go home tonight. Well, there's nothing else before us tonight. We are adjourned.